Good evening everyone and welcome to the South East Planning Meeting on Wednesday the 20th of August. My name is Vanessa Burnham and I'm the chairperson of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live, so by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you to speak at the appropriate time. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. We have no fire alarms planned for tonight, so should the alarm go off, no practices rather, should the alarm go off, it's out there and into Barclays Bank car park. Thank you. So item 2, apologies for absence. May I have the apologies please, Committee Clerk?
Yes, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Bowen.
Thank you very much, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3, the minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of July, found on pages 7 to 10, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so moved. Do I have a seconder? Yep, thank you. Councillor Neil. Any matters for accuracy, members, or can we agree those consent? Agreed. Super. Thank you very much. So we are to declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registral interests and non-registral interests relating to items of business on the agenda and with regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Any declarations, members? No, and the usual reminder if any come up during the meeting to declare. So we will move on to agenda item number 5 on pages 11 to 32, 00042 FUL, and that's 14 Southminster Road, Tillingham. We don't have a members' update in relation to this application, so I'll move straight to Mr. Bedwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, the mouse is hanging up a bit.
There we go.
Thank you. Right, so yes, this is the first application time for consideration is 25/00042/4, which is the planning application for the demolition of existing bungalow and erection of 2 dwellings at 14 Southminster Road, Tillingham. Site is located to the northern side of Southminster Road, to the southern end of the village of Tillingham, outside of the defining settlement boundary. Here you can see the position of the site relative to the more recent development at Southfields to the east of the site. Here's an aerial photograph just adding additional context in terms of the site's relationship with the built form of the village. Few photographs just to set the scene. This is the approach to Tillingham from the southwest, and the neighbouring properties to the site to the west of it in the foreground there. This is a view of the existing bungalow. On the site you'll see the construction works are ongoing there for the development to the rear, which we'll come on to later. It's a slightly earlier photograph of the rear elevation, just of the bungalow as existing, but particularly showing the relationship with the development of Southfields to the left-hand side. This again is the front entrance, but you can see the development under construction in the rear of the photograph. And here is not my photos. I don't have a drone, but it's provided by the applicant. It shows the existing hard surface area to the front of the bungalow. So we move along Tillingham, Southminster Road. You can see obviously the front boundary is very densely planted and in essence conceals any view of the existing bungalow or the proposed dwellings. In this case, as we move eastwards, you start to see the reveal of the Southfields development as you come towards the corner of as the road bends into the village itself. It's much more open. Now, in terms of the wider background to the site, you'll probably be aware that there was an approved scheme allowed at appeal in January 2023, with reserved matters approved in January last year. As I say, that is under construction, and it is intended that the current application scheme effectively forms part of that development, not only due to the fact that it shares an access, but also in terms of the design and materiality of it. Now, the site, as mentioned earlier, is outside of the defined settlement boundary. However, the principle of development of the wider site for residential use has already been established with the appeal decision. The inspector concluded that the site is in a sustainable location in allowing that appeal. Obviously, it's noted as well that the site is surrounded on 3 sides by existing residential development and is, of course, in residential use itself at the moment. On top of that, as you know, this is in addition to the council's 5-year housing land supply position at the moment, under which a tilted balance approach must be applied. Taking that and the appeal context into account, officers consider that the principle of development is acceptable in this instance. Just moving on to the design, officers originally had concerns about the proposed layout as put forward by the applicant in their initial submission. As the images on screen illustrate, the scheme essentially proposed the replacement of the existing bungalow with a larger 2-storey detached house, and then an inserted smaller dwelling behind that, between the new dwelling and the development under construction. Officers felt that this was unacceptable insofar as it did not sit comfortably within the townscape and would also potentially result in amenity conflicts with the limited separation distances. These points were raised with the applicant, and a series of suggestions were made in terms of how that could be overcome, and the applicant therefore revised the scheme accordingly to provide something which responds better to the context. Just very quickly, this is the existing site, the built form around the site. The original scheme, which, as you can see on this plan, feels much tighter and has very limited separation distances, and not with the pattern of development. The revised scheme, as presented to you now, has been amended to follow the building line, broadly speaking, of Southfields and the pattern of development, both in terms of those building lines and also the garden sizes, which follow the prevailing pattern in the area. Just going into a bit of detail on the dwellings themselves. They're 2-storey, fairly simple in their form, three bedrooms, with large kitchen and dining space, identical in plan form, but they are handed, as you will see on the elevations shortly. The street scene, as you can see, shows the elevations in context alongside of Southfields to the right hand side. Albeit the street scene itself is probably somewhat of a false view, because as you've seen in the photos, the front boundary is heavily planted, so any views of that would be glimpsed. Nevertheless, the style matches those of the adjoining Southfield properties, and of course the under construction dwellings. So yeah, in summary, it's outside the settlement boundary, but because of the 5-year housing land supply and the significant weight given to the appeal decision, the principle of development is considered acceptable. The applicant has worked with officers to address the initial concerns, and it's felt that the resulting design is sympathetic to the surrounding context and in keeping with the prevailing pattern of development. Other matters such as residential amenity, highway safety, ecology and biodiversity have all been assessed in detail and are considered to have been addressed, subject to conditions. Recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the legal agreement for a RAMS contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. Members, we do have public participation tonight, so I'm so sorry I didn't get your name.
Tracy.
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 Are you able to do the sign, Mr. Bailey?
Oh yes. I think I need to move the mouse a bit closer to the...
There we go. Oh, so you have 2 minutes. We'll start as soon as you start with certain times. So in your own time.
Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. I've just come to seek approval for the demolition of the existing bungalow at Southminster Road and the construction of 2 well-designed 3-bedroom detached houses, as been gone through. While the site is located outside the defined settlement boundary, the principle of the redevelopment here has already been firmly established. In 2023, the planning inspector, in allowing an appeal for the wider site, concluded that this location is sustainable and acceptable for residential use. This proposal simply continues that established approach with the net gain of 1 additional dwelling and in the form that is consistent with the adjoining development. The scheme aligns with the key aims of the NPPF framework, notably the assumption in favour of sustainable development, given the Council's current 2.7-year housing land supply. It makes more effective use of land, responds positively to the housing needs identified in the local housing needs assessment, particularly the strong demand for 3-bedroom homes, and contributes to meeting both local and national housing objectives. In design terms, the dwellings have been repositioned during the application process to respect the established building line, reflect the character of the surrounding 2-storey housing and maintain good separation and amenity for the neighbours. The use of matching materials is also being used. Highway safety and parking standards are fully met. The Essex Council highways raising no objection. The scheme also secures biodiversity enhancements and appropriate mitigation in line with the Essex Coast RAMS, ensuring compliance with the policy N2. In the planning balance, there are clear social and economic benefits from delivering additional housing in a sustainable location with no identified harm that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh those benefits. The proposal is therefore fully in line with both the Mundon District Council planning and national.
There you go. Thank you very much.
One more.
Thank you so much, Tracy. So, if you want to sit back. I can relax. Thank you. So, members, the officer's recommendation is to approve. Members, over to you. Yes, Councillor Sterling.
I actually support the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Yeah. Members, can we just agree this by consent?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed. Thank you, members. Your trip was not wasted, Tracy. Thank you very much. Yes, of course it is. Please don't you have to say out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Safe harbor. Okay, members, then moving swiftly on to item 6, 00301, FUL, which is land adjacent to the old post office, Main Road in Mundon, and you can find this on pages 33 to 52. Again, no members update, so I'll go straight over to you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Chair.
Yours again.
Thank you. Yes, this is a scheme for demolition of existing outbuildings and construction of a 2-bedroom dwelling and extended vehicle crossover at land adjacent to old post office in Mundon. Site's on the western side of Main Road. So here's a bit more aerial context for you, showing the settlement pattern and the open fields to the west. Approach to the existing old post office dwelling from the south. This is the main part of the site itself, with the parking area, vehicle crossover, and the outbuildings to be demolished. Both of the outbuildings are rather tired in terms of their condition. I think someone earlier used the word ramshackle. This is the smaller outbuilding nearest the existing house, and from the rear, that one's not as bad as the second one, which is a lot more run down. This is the one, the bit larger building that runs parallel to the road. As you can see from the back, it's in need of attention, shall we say. Quick shot of the view of the access and visibility display from the parking area. Existing garden which serves the main house. This area that's in the shop will be retained as part of the existing house, and a lovely view out across the fields to the rear. A nice day for site visits, that one. Yes, but moving on to the plans then, here we have the existing layout, the old post office on the left-hand side and the outbuildings to the right. The proposed site layout here with the shared parking area to the centre, which serves both properties, and the dwelling, which is positioned slightly set in away from the highway compared to the existing outbuildings, but similar footprint. There was a slight amendment during the course of the application to the position of the parking spaces. There was sort of a discrepancy over Highway's interpretation of their ownership line, but it was a fairly straightforward adjustment for the applicants to make, setting that back slightly. Here's a close-up plan showing an indication of the hard and soft landscaping. All the existing boundary trees and hedges to the north and western edges are to be retained, with, as you can see, some additional planting to the highway frontage at the bottom there. The architectural approach here has been to mimic the style and materials of the existing structures on the site, and this is something that officers consider has been successfully achieved, as the proposed street scene there illustrates. Here are the sort of closer up elevations showing the black painted weatherboarding and tile roofs, which are akin to the existing structures on site. The bungalow provides 2 bedrooms, one with ensuite, separate main bedroom, combined living, kitchen, dining space. There is an external air source heat pump. I don't know if you've spotted that on there, but this is to the rear elevation, tucked in to the sort of the rear gable there. Positionally, that's well away from any public or even neighbouring views, with the site boundary, as you can see on the right hand side there, quite densely vegetated at the moment and being retained as such. Just quickly in terms of the principle, this is a site which, in terms of policy SA, the rear part of this site falls outside of the settlement boundary, and it's therefore categorised as a departure, which is why we're here discussing it. But as noted in the report, the dwelling itself is positioned to the front section of the site, which is inside the settlement boundary, and therefore follows a pattern built form within the village. Only the garden is outside, and therefore officers consider that the principal development is acceptable. This was a very crude attempt to show an overlay of the site location, the settlement boundary on the plan. It's not 100% accurate, but hopefully it illustrates the point in that respect. So yes, in summary, the principle of development is considered acceptable for the reasons outlined. The scheme has been designed to what officers consider to be a highly sympathetic design, appropriate to the character and appearance of the local area, the single-storey form resembles the existing outbuildings at the site. And in terms of other considerations, residential amenity, highway safety, ecology, these have all been assessed in detail and are acceptable subject to conditions. And officers would recommend that permission be granted subject to Ram's contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Members, Councillor Baker and Lady
Well,
Brown.
Chairman, really just a point of clarification, because 5.1.2 refers to the village of Tillingham, not Mundon.
Oh, sorry.
And so if I can continue, which is defined as a main settlement. Mundon is not the main settlement.
No.
And then if we go to 5.10.2, the officer, in 5.10.2, the officer gives weight to the fact that I think to quote, prospective occupants would have good access to shops, services and facilities and public transport connections, reducing the reliance on private vehicles. I mean, Mundon is, I sort of measured it today, it's 3.2 miles from the shops in Mundon, 2.3 miles from the shops in Nottingham. There is a footpath opposite the application site, but that doesn't last for very long, and then it just goes into nothing as you'd expect in that area. But one of the things that concerns me enormously about this is that if one was to walk to Nottingham, you would walk past the site, not that far away, which was recently refused on appeal for not being sustainable. So I really don't understand how we can say this is a sustainable location based on that. It does concern me.
If I can.
Yes, please do.
The driving argument in terms of the acceptability of the principal development here is the fact that we have an issue where the settlement, the dwelling itself, is technically within the settlement boundary, in which case the locational sustainability of it well be considering is had the garden tipped over into the outside of the settlement boundary, it would not be considered a unsustainable location, because that's the purpose of the defined settlement boundaries in the first place.
So what they're saying is then the part, if I can come back to it, the part of the application site that's within the settlement boundary is considered to be a sustainable location, because we've had appeals on these before when that's not been upheld, because if the village is not sustainable, it's not sustainable.
The village itself has been sustainable, the settlement boundary, or
but there's
the case that we're talking about that is further down the road, is that within the settlement boundary or outside of the settlement boundary?
I'm not sure, but the argument, it fell over not on the settlement boundary, but on sustainability, and this is actually further away from facilities. I mean, to me, it's a bit of a conundrum, really. I mean, I've known these buildings all my life. I think I can remember when it was a sorting office, actually, not a post office. But it just seems to be contrary to what's happened before. So I think, and I'm also concerned with this mention of Tillingham and the fact that Tillingham is a large village with lots of facilities. I mean, this is in the report.
Yeah, that's clearly a slight savage. I apologise.
It really does concern me.
I wonder if Mr. Johnson, if you've got anything to add to that, with your knowledge of other things in the area. Before I go to Councillor Murray.
Well, I think the points raised are valid in terms of the consistency, and I think with the information in front of members, it would be difficult for members to probably come to a reasoned decision in light of what's been highlighted.
make apologies, I
I
should.
think we can accept that we're not talking about Tillingham, we are talking about Mundon.
Yeah, and we go to Councillor Labour and then Councillor Fittock, but we did have an issue here, don't we, now?
Yeah, I think
Let me just bring up the relevant paragraph. Bear with me a second.
Mind you, even though I was only illiterate and
Oh,
incapable of reading words this morning, so that's my excuse for not picking that up.
I mean, I think if these matters are in front of members, it would put members in a position in making a decision. I think.
So what are you suggesting, Johnson?
Well, let's hear what Matt's got to say.
Yeah.
But,
Councillor Fluker, the paragraph you were referring to was in the
5.1.2.
5.1.2, where we mentioned
Page 37.
where we
That was
mentioned
Tillingham rather than Mundon.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 5.10.
5.1.2 is where we mentioned Tillingham is
Yeah.
defined as a main settlement. And
Yeah.
then 5.10.2 is where you
Yeah.
refer to that in your deliberations.
Whilst they hold my hand up to that sentence being out of place, it doesn't explicitly, whilst there's a reference to Tillingham, it doesn't state that it's been assessed on that basis. Let me just check. Lower down. I appreciate the issue, but the main, as I say, the main consideration for us as officers in this case is that when one is looking at a site that is, if a proposal came forward for a new dwelling within the settlement boundary, then the locational sustainability issues that I think you were raising in relation to this other appeal site further down the road wouldn't necessarily come into play because it is within the plan directs development to sites within the settlement defined settlement boundary.
If I could come back to it, I mean, the bit that really concerns me is 5.10.2, where it says quite
Because it's not true,
It
it's saying
says
something that's
prospective
completely
occupants will
untrue.
have good access to
Yeah.
shop services and facilities, which
they
you would do in Tillingham without any question of doubt. But I'm sort of a bit uncomfortable about
Isn't
it.
it even a, so even a, you don't
Yeah, I think, and I think that we'd have to, I don't think members have all the correct information in front of them to make a decision.
Can I propose we
yeah.
Can I propose we defer?
I
I'm
second
sorry.
that, members, can we?
No, that's fine. Likewise, those kind of spots didn't either. But listen, we are where we are. And what would be, I guess,
That's one we asked.
in the absence of that paragraph, the same recommendation would stand based on the points that we've set out in the report.
We still can't.
Yeah, can I just say that I think that we should just
We've just got to let
take a
it.
view on the deferral, which I gather as a formal position being taken.
We've got a proposal.
Yeah,
that's been
that's
sent.
right.
For clarity, is that what Mr Johnson
He's suggesting yes.
Yeah, I
that we
suggest we
prefer-
go.
Can I also suggest that the other members have their say in case there's any queries that might get
Yes, so let's go to Councillor Noble and then Councillor Fittock.
Well, what I say, I was actually going to say that it's all a bit of nonsense saying that it's not sustainable if you can't walk to a shop. More than half of the borough, you can't walk to a shop. People are relying on a car. Mundon is on the main bus street. It's quite a regular.
It's a
So that people do have access to get to the shops in Mundon, even if it means jumping on a bus, which applies to multiple places in this borough. So that affects a bit of nonsense, a bit of a red herring. I think the design and the modest size of this property is more than acceptable. And I would actually say, yes, I would be inclined to go along with the officer's recommendation to approve this.
Mr. Chairperson, if you want to come back on that.
Yeah, I mean, those points are noted, but I think that the report should accurately reflect
needs to
what was
accurately
mentioned and put it in context. I think having a report with ABC glaring errors
It's not.
it just doesn't speak to proper decision making.
Yeah.
Even if the outcome may be the same at the end, I think that's,
agree.
you know, that's my position. I'd be very uncomfortable with this.
I
I mean, it could be used by someone else in some other context, which,
It's
as we know,
it's only a door. So, Councillor Fittick, did you want to?
Yeah, I did. I believe that the report's wrong, it could prejudice us, but I'd like to say, in terms of sustainability, it's not what we decided it's going to be, it's what the policies decide it's going to be, and we have policies S1 and SA. And policy S1 permits development within the settlement boundaries, understanding an SA would give an exception to it under certain circumstances, or SA also allows it. So I think the principal development, as you say, because it's within a settlement boundary, it doesn't have to be proved to be sustainable because we've determined that in our policy already. Anything outside it, I think Councillor Fluke was probably referring to Willow Grove. That was outside the settlement boundary, so therefore the SA doesn't apply because it doesn't permit development for residential properties. So I don't think we've got, you know, I think in terms of sustainability, it's our policies that we're deciding on, not what we think to be sustainable, and I think we have to remember that. So ordinarily I wouldn't see it as a problem, but I agree with Councillor Fluke and Mr Johnson that if there's any doubt about the actual report being deemed, if you like, appropriate to make a decision, then we probably should.
Councillor Siddle-Norman, thank you, Councillor Fittick.
It's
You all right? Did you want to say anything?
all right, I was only going to make a point.
Okay, lovely. So we'll
concerns that need to be addressed.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a lovely little, you know, it's sympathetic, it's a nice design, all of those things. It's just, yeah, really iffy making a decision on wrong information. So, members, can we agree by consent to defer?
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Again,
That's all right.
so, I have no other items of business that are urgent, so I'll close the meeting at 8:02. Members, thank you for your patience.
I mean, it's not a matter.